We're talking about Knoxville here in the truck series at Knoxville. I made a video earlier in the year, I think January, February. I think those points still come across, but I'll kind of, summarize them here. Is my thoughts on Knoxville is I don't think it's going to be a very entertaining race. I don't think it's going to be a very good race. Knoxville is a super, super flat track. It's going to slick off incredibly fast with these trucks. The trucks can be pushing loose to where basically they're sideways. They're wanting to spin out, but they're also wanting to head towards the wall just due to the way that this track is without the banking. When you look at Eldora, and you look at how those trucks are able to get around the corners, or how guys are able to make passes, or how guys are at least able to keep up with each other, they're basically rubbing that right rear against the outside wall at Eldora. You can't do that here at Knoxville. Not only do you not have banking to kind of lean the car on, you have a Armco barrier here. It's not concrete. Your truck is going to want to be pulled into this wall. And I don't think we're going to see much passing here. I'm going to go over a few things that I'm at least looking into for research, or how I think the race is going to go through. I think the SRX race is incredibly important for this week. Not just for Deegan, but I think for how this track is going to act and how this race is going to happen. I would highly recommend watching the SRX race, or at least looking at how that race kind of unfolded. And I would highly suggest us to watching the SRX in general. It's more entertaining than NASCAR. But when they went to Eldora, they brought cars that race very, very similar to how the truck's going to race here. And I have some stuff. I'll bring up some quotes. And so, Donnie Schatz, the World of Outlaw driver who races for Tony Stewart, he even said, or he's saying entering this week, it feels like when you get to Knoxville, even in a sprint car, when you do one lap, it feels like 10. The level of aggression you have to have here, and even though the trucks are slower, I know that we're going to have to be up on the wheel all 150 laps. And so basically he's saying that Knoxville is already a demanding track due to the fact that it's, flat, it's challenging, you have to really wheel the cars down. You're going to have to do the same thing here. That's what the guys in the SRX were doing. And they only did a 50-lap race. So we're doing 150 laps here. We have to worry about the truck surviving, the guys being able to, continuously drive it, and the tires. Like, that's going to be a real big issue as well. Stewart, on day one when they were practicing for the SRX, they said the track was slow. When he asked which lane was dominant, it's the bottom, because it's so worn out. There's nothing to get a hold of on the outside. The more yawed you go, the worse the grip is, or the more yawed out you get. Like when you get on the gas, when you stand on the throttle, the rear end wants to come around. The more you go out, or the more you let it, swing out, the less grip you have. You don't want to throw it in here. If you do, it isn't going to stop. And so if you throw it into the corner, if you try and drive it like like at Eldora or Bristol, where you kind of let the rear end hang out to try and catch, you can't do that here. You're just going to slide towards the outside wall. Ken Schrader told Haley Deegan that it's going to feel exactly like your K&N car, exactly like the trucks, to give her, advice entering. And I would really look into, just look at what the drivers were saying at the SRX. I mean, I think that is the idea of how this race is going to go. Haley Deegan was saying that the rear is just wanting to hang off, even off the gas, even on the straightaways. This car is just wanting to slide all over the place. This track is going to be iced off. Like it's going to be super, super slick. David Strimmy was telling the drivers, and I didn't realize how many drivers, or how many, ex-NASCAR drivers were involved with SRX. But you got Johnny Benson, you got David Strimmy, you got Ken Schrader, you got, all these other guys involved. Like, it's really cool, man. The SRX is really, a good group of guys. Anyway, so David Strimmy was telling the drivers in the drivers meeting, and even before the races, that it's going to be close on tires for this SRX main. If you looked through the race, you see Brad Daugherty talking about the tire wear. I mean, these tires that Goodyear brought to the SRX, and I think it's going to be very similar to the compound that they bring for the truck series. It was absolutely a racing slick. I mean, this track is eating through the right rear tire, and that's why the drivers are so sideways. That's why they're going to be so sideways, because this track, you can't water it like you do, like how Knoxville normally does. Usually Knoxville, and they've documented, if you go online and you look at some videos, they talk to the groundskeeper or the, the track prep dude, I forgot his name, Douglas something, David, whatever. Through the years, they kind of document the type of clay that they use for the Knoxville Nationals, how much they water it, what they put in to this, And now Knoxville is basically having to do even less track prep than they did for SRX. Because remember, SRX doesn't have windshields. You don't have to worry about getting, the windshield all dirty. Here, NASCAR is going to have their stupid windshields, and that's just going to create more havoc for the drivers. You got to deal with dust. You got to deal with this track drying out, and the outside lane absolutely not being there at all. I got to get back to my notes because I'm going on another tangent here. So the third place finisher in the SRX basically said it's like racing in the rain. The high line wasn't there at all. The only place you could go was the inside lane. Like I said, the track is going to be dry for NASCAR. We saw it at Bristol. Dust is going to be an issue. The top lane isn't going to work if it's dried out. The cushion is just sand. As much as I hate Danica Patrick, she can at least see what's going on. And even she was like, "Look, the outside lane, it's not mud, it's not dirt, it's just loose dirt. When you get up there, it's just dust and loose dirt. Absolutely no grip whatsoever on the outside lane because you can't water the track. You can't have mud being formed. And the way the cushion works, if you look at the old Eldora races or the ones where it had a cushion, if you look at Bristol." At the very start of the races, and especially in the heat races, like that first heat race, when it was muddy, like that would have been good racing. Get the windshield off the trucks and go racing. That's the type of track you want. You can't have that here. They don't want to get basically any mud on the trucks, and so I'm sorry I'm repeating that, but that's a major issue. Like the tires, I don't think the tires are going to last. We have the 2 stages. And I think we're going to see tire failures before those stages, especially on the right rear. If NASCAR wants to give teams more tires or whatever, we might see that happen. But I think tire wear is going to be a huge, huge issue. I also think the track is going to be 1 lane on the bottom. The second lane is basically right against the door of the car on the inside. Like anything higher than maybe a car width and a half higher than that is no good. You cannot make any speed. Yet again, going back to the Eldora cushions, the Eldora banking, you could use that outside lane. The reason the outside lane was dominant was because the inside lane was flat. You couldn't carry any speed. Well, now it's basically the opposite. There is no banking, and so the shortest way around the track is the inside lane. You also have that berm on the inside of Knoxville, which kind of helps keep the car there. Like if you run your left rear or your left front against the berm on the corners, it kind of like locks you in there. Like if you put your left rear on the berm on the inside, it kind of loads up the right rear to keep it down. Like that's the only advantage that you have on Knoxville is to use the inside berm to help turn the car. And so I think most crashes are going to be self-cleaned in this race. And what I mean by that is if a car gets spun sideways or if a truck gets spun sideways, it's going to head towards the outside wall in the corners. If it's exiting the corner, we can't really say much there. I think most of the wrecks are going to be happening on the exits of the corners or on the midway through the corner on the exit. And I think it's just going to send the car to the outside lane. And so I don't think we're going to see a lot of cars, like a lot of big ones. I just think if you get spun sideways, your day is done. Because if one guy hits you, you're DFL. You're dead in the water. And so, do we see a lot of crashes here? I would not be shocked if this race has a lot of single car incidents, but those single cars are just DNF'd at the end. I wouldn't be surprised if we see big ones in every stage to where this race is ran under yellow. At Eldora, like I said, you could use the outside line. You could use the outside wall to steer. You can't do that here. Track prep, like I said, kind of just going through my notes here. We're going to be using significantly less water than what we're used to. What I want to see when the trucks hit the racetrack is a surface that has some moisture in it, but not to the point where it's definitely not standing, but pretty much at the point where it's starting to discolor. So basically, they're saying that when the trucks go out to start the race or the heats or whatever, it's already going to be basically dry. So it's just going to get worn out. Eldora is hard to pass. I think this race is going to be worse. When looking at the Eldora races, and I already know I'm going to have somebody, why are you comparing Eldora to this track? It's not the same. Why aren't you comparing Bristol? Because Bristol, not even close, man. That's like comparing Daytona to Martinsville in terms of banking. It really is. I'm not looking at Bristol dirt. I'm not even looking at the practice data from that. I'm looking at the practice data that these guys show here when they arrived at the track. Anyway, going back to ranking Eldora in terms of dry conditions, in terms to get an idea of how this race is going to go, because I think we're only going to see one dominator in this race. I think we're going to see one guy lead most of the race, and I think that's going to either be the pole sitter, the guy who starts second, third, or fourth. And I'll elaborate onto that once I get through, kind of ranking Eldora. So when you rank Eldora in terms of dryness, I think the driest Eldora race we had was 2013, then 2015, then 2018, and then 2019, but it's not even really close. 13 was by far the driest, and then 15 would be the two that I would look at. And so in 2013, this was actually the first race at Eldora. Just a coincidence. I was just looking at the tracks and trying to gauge how dry they were. No one could pass the leader. Nobody could pass at all in the 2013 race. The fastest three drivers would constantly pull away on the restarts, but nobody could pass the leader, and nobody could really pass those top three. The guys who were fast in the heats, the guys who were fast in qualifying, were the guys who were fast in the race. Same thing in 2015, same thing in 2018. So let's look at the laps led here and compare them to the others. And so in 2013, the winner led 64 laps, second place led 51. Only four drivers led in that race. The other two had 23 laps led and 15 laps led. In 2015, the winner led 106 laps, second place led 39, and then two other drivers led. One led 8, one led 1. In 2018, your winner led 54 laps, second place led 1 lap, third place led 1 lap, and then one guy led 53, and then one guy led 44, and they both ran into trouble late in that race. And then looking at the Eldora races as a whole from 2013 to 2019, your race leader led 64 laps, 97 laps, 106, 48, 24, 54, and 57. So typically we're either seeing one guy dominate or two guys lead. And typically we've seen twice that somebody who leads 93 laps doesn't end up winning the race, or he gets passed late in the race. And so if I'm building lineups, I'm building one dominator lineups, and I'm not really chasing place differential from the road course ringers in the back. I'm not really going out of my way to chase place differential. If I'm basically kind of playing this as like a regular 1.5 mile. Just find the guy who's going to lead laps. Find me, one or two places for place differential, and then I'm playing guys who are starting up in the front. I don't think we're going to see much passing unless this race really gets crazy, and that's how I'm going to approach it. I'm going to lean heavily on the practice data and more of the eye test. I'm hoping Fox actually shows more than one car. I gotta stop raining. But wasn't that annoying at Road America? Like during qualifying, they would just sit on one driver as they go across. Like, hello, we got 40 cars on the track. Why are we watching one dude's in-car to learn this track? You've already showed us Roger Penske's footage 100 times. I know what the track looks like. Let me see the other cars. So hopefully Fox actually shows us some good stuff. So yeah, that's basically my preview for Knoxville. I don't think it's going to be a very fun race. It could either be incredibly boring where one guy kind of dominates, or it's incredibly ugly to where they just keep wrecking each other. I think a hybrid of the two is pretty much what I'm going to build lineups for. I'll probably build lineups edging or leaning towards a race that goes green and then leaning towards chaos. Either way, I'm going to build a lineup with at least one dominator, and I'm expecting that dominator to lead over a third of the race, if not half of the race. And if they lead any more, then you already have that guy. If they lead any more and you don't have that guy, I mean, you've already lost there. I don't think it's wise to keep wasting, wasting spots in your lineup to try and nail that lap leader, whereas I don't want to have in my lineup the pole sitter, the guy who starts third, the guy who starts sixth, the guy who starts ninth. I'll probably go for whoever I think is going to lead laps, a guy who I think, and everywhere else from that is guys who I think can get top 12 finishes. I think that's the best way to answer it. So lap leader, and then whoever I think can get a 12th place finish. Now, if that's if that guy's already in the top 12, play him. Hopefully I'm making sense there. If not, you've already listened. Thank you for that. For Patreon, though, I'm going to ask you guys in Discord as well, but I'm assuming you're listening to this too. We're going to have an extremely small window between the LCQ and the start of the grid, or the start of the race. It's usually like 40 minutes, 45, less than half an hour. I don't have enough time to finish the heat map in that time, because I do that manually to try and make sure that, like, hey, my heat map is basically a more detailed description of my projections. I don't think I'm going to be able to get that done. However, obviously I still want to give you guys the projections. And so what I think I'm going to do for Eldora is just give you the projections and my cores and my favorite plays, and not do the heat map for this race, just to get it out in time for you guys to see it, because we're just going to be on such a number crunch. I think that's going to be the way to do it. So if you have any feedback or if you want anything different, message me, let me know. I'll probably say that in my Discord as well. I'll probably put it up on Patreon, but that's what it's looking like for the Eldora race, just because we're going to have about half an hour of a window to get everything done. So thank you guys for listening. Hopefully this kind of helps you out. And I'm probably going to do a video like this for Atlanta either tonight or tomorrow morning. But anyway, that's my preview for Knoxville. Look at the SRX race. Take a lot of data points from that. I think that's how the track is going to race. I think the drier Eldora races is what this race is going to be like in terms of not being able to pass. I don't think we're going to be seeing slide jobs, because if you do slide jobs, you're going to end up killing people in the field. And so, yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening, and hopefully this helps you.